So Randy, why don't you give us a little background on yourself?
Thanks, Mike, for having me today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Glad you could make it.
I recently retired from the Arlington Fire Department
Okay.
for 34 years, and I've owned a pest control company in Arlington for the last 22 years.
Yes, you have. And I've used Randy many, many times over the years and does a fantastic job. So in our part of the industry, a lot of times what we hear somebody refer to is they say, I'm buying a home and I need a termite inspection.
Right.
I think it's actually referred to as a WDI, right?
Right.
So would you just kind of explain what exactly a WDI is and maybe what the process is as you're going around the home and doing your inspection?
Okay, WDI is a wood destroying insect report. Some mortgage companies require it. You may know a little bit more about what they actually all do.
As far as I know right now, basically VA is the only one, meaning if you're a veteran and getting a loan, that requires it, unless potentially when a real estate appraiser comes out there and they see something they think may have been some signs of maybe something in the past that has to do with pest control or termites, and they require it. Although we always recommend to everybody when they're purchasing a home, they should get one just as a matter of good business.
Right. So many of the inspections are done by home inspectors, but sometimes, like you say, people call specifically to do it.
Right.
And it is an inspection around the building of things that are visible at the time. That's one thing being made important. And just because you have an inspection at that time doesn't mean that you don't have termites. It just means there's nothing visible.
So no, you're not seeing any, what you could refer, and I'll ask you what those are in a second, signs that are jumping out at you.
Right. And usually that inspection is good for 30 days. And depending on the time of the year, because termites are more active in April or May,
Right.
you could have no signs today, and a week or 2 weeks later there may be signs. But in general, WDI is done in order to say at this point there are no visible signs of our termites or carpenter ants or other wood destroying insects at the time of the inspection.
So, and again, I think what you're referring to, at least from what we consider to be, what you guys consider to be swarming, maybe in certain times of the year, or again, you may have the termites are more prevalent than other times.
Exactly.
Type of thing. Okay.
Exactly. Swarming is usually in April and May.
Got it. So, explain what a termite is, and then also explain what a carpenter is, because.
Well, there are multiple varieties of termites,
Okay.
but in Texas, in North Texas, we mainly have an eastern subterranean termite.
Okay.
Okay. And it's a termite that requires going down into the soil, getting moisture, coming back up, and eating on your house.
Got it.
So it has to have that constant up and down. Further south in Houston, they'll have more of a drywood termite. It's humid enough there that where they can have that, but it's very rare to have that there.
Got it.
So in general, 99.99% of the time, that's the type of termite we have here.
So I think, especially when somebody comes from another part of the country, especially if they're around the coast, they're used to seeing homes that are treated for termites that are referred to as being tinted.
Right.
But again, it's all based on the type of termite that we have here. We don't, I would say, the majority of the time, that's nothing we have to do up here. Would that be correct?
No, yeah, exactly. There they have a drywood termite,
right?
So they have them in different areas of the house and the eaves, places like that. They have to do tinting.
Right.
So I'm sure someone's done it for some reason, but I personally have never heard of someone tinting a house in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
I understand. So again, for you guys that are moving from other parts of the country, keep in mind that termites will vary depending on what part of the country you're in. So if you had this crazy experience in the past somewhere else, because the termites, don't get nervous, because around here, I would say that you would have had to have had termites chewing on your home for a very, very long time in order to do real damage. Would you say something in that ballpark?
I would say that. If you have termites, you're going to have to ignore them for multiple years to have structural damage.
Right.
Now, unless it's a formation termite, which is, I think they've had like, I don't even know sure, but I think maybe 1 or 2 cases in the Dallas-Fort Worth area ever. So it's not likely that that's the type termite you have. But in general, the termite we have here, it's a multi-year process. Someone would have to ignore it, or not recognize it, or not treat it over multiple years.
Okay, so what exactly is a carpenter ant?
A carpenter ant is an ant that does not feed on wood, but it makes its home in the wood.
Okay.
Usually you'll find them around the eaves of the houses. And a lot of times inspectors will misidentify them as a carpenter ant, and they're actually an acrobatic ant. They're very similar.
Okay. So
but
do acrobatic ants cause anything?
No, they're very easy to get rid of. And carpenter ants aren't necessarily that hard, but sometimes they can be very difficult. So
And they are usually
not
like black and red, is that, no?
They can be
Yes?
a variety of
Okay.
colors. They're a larger ant, or larger than a fire ant. They're
Okay.
one of the larger ants you'll see.
Okay.
So if you see fairly large ants,
Mm-hmm. In
somewhere
your
in the
door
say
frame?
3/8 of an inch or
Okay.
so,
Right.
and they're on the eaves of your house, most likely you have a carpenter ant.
Okay. All right, very good.
Oh, another sign of carpenter ants
Sure.
is frass. Frass it's where they actually eat other ants.
Right.
And you'll see body parts. It kind of looks like
The war of the ants?
fire ant dirt. You'll find it on your windowsill.
I've never heard that, that's crazy.
It's called frass, and it's on the windowsills, and that's a very good indicator that you also have a nesting like carpenter ants.
Wow. Okay, so you find termites, and a lot of times you can find them in like a wet area. I say like a bathroom or around the kitchen
Right.
areas, that type of thing.
Right.
So what would be what are various types of treatment that one could do? You know, that type of thing.
Well, the reason usually you find them in a bathroom is they're very moisture sensitive. They have to go up and down to get the
Okay.
moisture for the body. So obviously,
Okay.
if you have a shower pan that's leaking, that
Right.
type of thing going on, you're going to have rotten, moist wood.
Right.
That's where they're more likely to be
Okay.
in general. Plus, they follow the condensation of the pipes coming into the house,
Okay.
and that's just a natural conduit for them to come in.
Okay.
What was your other question?
Well, that's what the treatment would be. for
Okay. Well, up until probably about 10 years ago, there was a new product that came out online.
that. Mhm.
And up to then, they would try to do more of what you would call a partial treatment, defined by the state as trying to treat every plumbing penetration
Yeah.
and all the exterior of the house.
Now, would that be a spot treatment, or would that would have been considered a full treatment back then?
Well, the only thing that they have what they call a complete treatment or a full treatment
Right.
is if you treat prior to the house foundation being poured
Okay,
or done.
right, from day one, which is required in Texas when you build a new
All
house.
right.
Uh-huh.
So anything after that is considered a partial or a spot.
Okay,
And a spot is anything that does 10 linear feet or one specific spot in the house. Anything more than that is called a partial.
okay.
So that's how they define the treatment.
So in other words, if you came in, let's say somebody, I'm just using my own terminology, wanted the entire home treated, that would still be, and technically a partial treatment.
Correct.
If they wanted, say, the master bath area, that would consider to be, and I realize depending on how far apart it is,
Right.
I guess, basically something in the variety of the spot treatment. Would that be
Right.
close?
If you were treating just say the toilet area
Right.
or the shower area specifically,
Right,
then it would be called a spot treatment.
understand. So what kind of chemicals, or how do they use organics, or how does that all happen as far as termites, et cetera?
Well, the product you use is put under the foundation.
Right.
You drill holes, you pump it under the foundation.
Okay,
The active ingredient that works best right now is called fipronil. It's in different products, but
Okay.
the active ingredient is fipronil.
got it.
It has a great record. It's been around for, I guess, probably at least 10, 12 years.
Mhm.
And the FDA,
Mhm.
that's not correct, the forestry department
Right.
is the one that actually tests that product.
That's interesting.
And their products have shown to last up to 20 years without having reinfestations after being treated with that product.
Cool.
So in general, a spot treatment starts at about $185.
Mhm.
That's, it's very
Right.
general.
Right,
And then you could go up to, I recently gave an estimate that was $150.
right.
So they can go up to possibly maybe $2,000.
So it depends on the size of the house.
Right, it depends on the size of the house, where you're treating.
How many
and-
bathrooms you're potentially treating.
But almost always, in a real estate transaction, you're gonna treat specifically where you're having the problem.
Okay,
And
but
then
again, what we call the
areas,
spot treatment,
right,
right? Okay,
right.
all right. And what about carpenter ants? How do you treat for carpenter ants?
Well, carpenter ants, for me, the way I treat it is actually with the same chemical that it's
Yeah.
actually labeled for also for carpenter ants.
Got it?
And we spray, it's allowed, you're allowed to spray up 1 foot and down 1 foot from the foundation.
Okay,
Carpenter ants are known to go up and out on a regular basis,
okay,
trying to forage for food and water.
right. Because
So
again,
they're-
they don't eat wood, they just basically live in the wood.
Right, right,
So
exactly.
do they burrow into it? Is that what they do?
They do.
Okay,
They'll make their nest up in the eave areas is mainly where you'll find them. You'll find
Yeah.
them sometimes around windowsills, any void area in their walls.
okay,
And they go up and down. And since they travel up and down, if you put that barrier at the
Mhm.
base of the house,
Right.
you're doing two things. You're protecting the people that live there
right,
from having exposure to the chemical.
Understand.
But you're also putting it in a place where they're going to go back and forth into the house. And over a period of time,
They will.
usually 2 to 4 weeks, you'll kill out the colony.
So whenever you treat, especially like that, people may think, oh, I see them 2 days later, it takes a little bit for it to kick in.
Correct.
Right? That's right.
Exactly.
Okay, so talk about on a termite inspection, one of the things that they have on there is conducive conditions.
Right.
So let's talk about what would be a conducive condition.
Conducive conditions, the main ones you see would be a fence contacting the side of the house.
Okay.
That's a conduit for carpenter ants.
Got it.
No, there'll be soil too high above the actual foundation into the brick. That holds moisture, and that's another common place for them to come in.
So in other words, if you had a house and you have what they refer to as the cement footing, meaning as you walk around your home, and that is up over what they call the brick line. So in other words, brick line would start with the, assuming it's brick, would start with the first brick row.
Right.
And so any dirt needs to be, well, how far below? I forget.
I think they recommend 4 inches
4 inches
below the brick
So
line.
something like around there, below the brick line, that type of thing. So, okay. All right. What would be some other conducive conditions?
Well, if you had obviously a leaking, some sort of leak or some known leak underneath the house, if
Right.
you've had rotten wood, if you find around a garage area or
Right.
anything that might have rotten wood around trim, just the nature of the way sometimes the carpentry is done, the wood collects water and starts to rot, so that's obviously a conducive condition. Termites use a sense of smell in order to find the house.
Oh.
And so that scent gets put into the ground and then they follow that scent up, that and moisture.
Oh, that's interesting. So for instance, like, let's say like around a garage door, a lot of times they've got rotten wood at the base.
Right.
And you're saying, even though that's like, in theory, probably cement right below it, they can still sense that and then go from there?
Well, they probably would, I never would probably write that specific up, but
Right.
if that area, you know, in a lot
Had
of
been-
houses, they'll have siding on the side of the
Right,
house.
right.
That's a very common place for that to happen. The rotten wood right
Right.
there causes a scent and then they come up. Also in the house itself, so if you know you have a leaky shower,
Mhm.
you know you're gonna have that
Right.
mold and mildew there that's
Right.
gonna.
Again, they
eventually
can
get
smell
down.
that.
Right.
That's interesting. All right, so also on the report, it talks about by design, meaning conducive condition by
Right.
design. So give me an example of that.
The easiest one by design is that the house is made of wood.
Okay?
So by the fact it's made of wood and termites eat wood, it's conducive by design.
Right, but that doesn't require a treatment though.
No, so if you had a house that was a metal studded house,
Mhm.
then the other things, there are some other things possibly
Right.
the way the trap around the bathtub is done that
Right.
might be conducive.
Right,
But the fact that a house is made of wood and termites like wood, it's conducive by design.
got it, all right. So if a house is like, say, stucco, does that affect it one way or the other? Or it doesn't really, does it? It's just more going for the,
Only if they had, sometimes they do use wood behind there.
Right.
And if that wood holds moisture and causes rot,
Right.
it wouldn't be anything that we would call out,
right,
but it might be a concern at some point. But I've never seen specifically a stucco house being more of a concern than a brick veneer house.
okay. So let's talk about maintenance. So what things should you do on a regular basis, let's say outside first, to
Right.
protect your home? I guess like trimming shrubs, et cetera, you know, that type of thing. What would you suggest?
Well, that first thing would be to maintain your soil below the brick line.
Okay,
The next thing would be to keep your shrubs and trees out of contact with the house, keep them away
all right,
from
so
the
let me
house.
ask you a question. So how far away would you say would be like a foot?
I think the guideline is something in that area. The main thing that you're looking at, at least from a realtor's point of view,
Right.
but what you're looking at is anything that doesn't allow an ant to walk up and walk right into your
Trying to
even
cut
the
out
house.
their highway.
So even if it's probably an inch, it's probably enough. But you mainly, obviously, trees grow and or bushes grow fairly quickly. So you want to just keep a clearance between your house and any brush or any trees.
Okay, and I know a lot of times people think this ivy growing on their house is cute, besides the fact that
Right.
it's not good for your brick. Same thing, it creates a highway, does it not?
The creek to highway, the other thing it mainly does is ivy, is it makes it impossible, because one of the things you can do is you can on a routine basis go around,
Right.
especially in April and May
Right.
when they're active, and see if you have tubes coming up the exterior and going in under the brick
Tubes
line.
get masked by the ivy, so you can't see it.
And so then you can't see it because you have ivy there, or the grasses that people like to put beside their houses. And
Okay.
so for a while, it's not as obvious maybe that you have termites.
All right, so what about the big branches hanging over a house? Besides the fact you don't want one, you know, falling on your roof, but that would also be conducive for a highway, or no?
Well, one of the things is squirrels.
Right,
So you want to keep the branches away from your house
Right.
or squirrel, that type of problem.
right,
As long as the branch isn't touching the house, they're not going to basically.
they're not gonna jump off.
Right.
Okay.
But
got
you
it.
just want to keep those away just for protection of your roof as much as anything.
All right, what about on your yard? Should you treat for, I say, like ants or whatever once a year, like out in the yard, to kind of keep them away from the house itself? Would that help, or that type of thing? Or?
There are definitely products out there that now are labeled, or they can last up to a year if you treat and you use the right thing.
Right.
Some of that's not available to homeowners in general.
Right.
But it will last for a year and it works very well.
Okay. So anything else that you would do outside on an ongoing, either that one would do himself or hire a professional like yourself to do?
I recommend they treat a minimum of twice a year. And I prefer 3 times a year.
You're referring to outside? We're talking about outside.
This is just an outside treatment.
Okay.
Where you would follow whatever the label says and
Right.
treat accordingly
Right.
with whatever product you would use.
Right.
I'm sorry, for years I'd always recommended twice a year, and I felt like, because a lot of people maybe, you would think maybe you're obviously wanting a recurring or revenue type of thing. So, but now I feel comfortable recommending it 3 times a year.
And I will tell you that if I have an issue, I'm calling him because I want to make sure it is done right, not wrong. And the difference is well worth hiring a professional to do that. All right, so let's talk about inside. What should you do as far as preventative maintenance on the inside?
I would recommend most people not do anything. If they maintain treating the exterior, they rarely have a problem interiorly. Now, obviously, we're not talking about if they have termites or carpenter ants or something like that. But if specifically just for general pest control in Texas, if you'll maintain the exterior being sprayed, then you're going to have much fewer problems interiorly.
All right, so what would be a sign on the inside that you're having issues? And I don't mean so much as like, all of a sudden you got a bunch of ants for whatever reason, but I mean, say spiders or different other insects that might indicate to you that you're having an issue, that type of thing.
Well, the biggest reason usually someone calls you is they see whether it's ants, spiders, or roaches. They have a problem interiorly. They're seeing a lot of spiders, a lot of ants, or a lot of roaches. So at that point is generally when they ask you to do something more than just do the exterior. And they're usually people that haven't been doing their exterior on a regular basis.
So I think really what you're saying is that as long as you, again, treat the exterior on an ongoing basis, on a regular maintenance schedule, whether it's, as you say, 3 times a year, or at least twice a year, that type of thing, then that will really limit any potential issues that you would have inside, with obviously some exceptions to that. Would you say that's fair? Okay. All right. Now, again, same thing, organics, would they be used, or is there an organic choice for somebody that says, I really don't want I say the chemicals, but do you have organics that you use? Or?
I mean, organics are great. I don't have a big arsenal of organics, what I usually use. I use some things that are considered to be something, if you do spray interiorly and someone had asthma, is what the preferred type of product you would use. So most organics, I think, work well, especially if it's a homeowner willing to do it. The cost usually is a little higher than what other products are, possibly. But I'm not going to say don't use them or whatever. If you find a product that works, I would definitely use it.
Would you say that they're not as effective as the others?
Well, it just depends, because just because you say organic doesn't mean it's not any more toxic. I mean, they would take tobacco leaves, put it in a bucket, and extract that juice from that bucket of tobacco, and they would spray it. And that was considered organic, But the actual ingredient that's killing the bugs is arsenic that's found naturally in tobacco. So arsenic is a pretty dangerous product. But because it's organic doesn't specifically mean that it's a deal. I would recommend if anybody finds anything organic and it works for them, that's great. And I always recommend you use organic if you can find a product that does that.
Okay. Any other tips that you would like to share as far as what you do?
The only thing I would say on a WDI, and this is more for realtors, a lot of times in WDI, they'll come back to you and say they want a clean WDI. There's no such thing as a clean WDI. Just like we talked about, there are conducive conditions that are always out there.
Conditions by design.
And so they want you to go treat the building for termites or carpenter ants and then rewrite you another WDI, and that's not the way the process works.
I understand. Yeah, you put on there, you just say, hey, it does not require treatment or whatever.
Or you have an invoice that shows this is the inspection and this is the invoice with a graph showing this is what was done. And so now for mortgage companies, generally they take that. Sometimes there is a conflict.
Okay, so if you happen to come across a home that shows previous termite damage, but you don't see previous termite treatment, I mean, you're not seeing the signs, do you recommend go ahead and treat those areas?
That's a good question. If you show it has previous termite damage and you can't find any record of it being treated, You probably just have to do a lot more investigating. I wouldn't give a blanket yes or no on that. I would really just have to see the circumstances.
I understand. So it's kind of a case-by-case basis,
Right.
that type of thing. But yeah, but definitely not just a no for that. I mean, we got to go check it out. It still could be a no,
Right.
but it also might be a yes, depending on the situation.
Yes.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, we appreciate Randy coming in and visiting with us today. How can folks contact you?
Well, you can give me a call at 817-478-6601, and I will call you back, or I will contact you.
He always does. So thank you very much. Until next time.